Trustees to order. Could you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Easton, could we have the roll call, please?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Dr. Cross,
Here.
Mr. Stubbs is absent. Mr. Potter. Here. The purpose of this special meeting is to approve the School Resource Officer Memorandum of Understanding between German Township and the Valley View Local School District Board of Education.
If we have any visitor comments, you could please come up to the podium and state your name and address the first time, and then your name after that. Please be advised, though, that you have to, this meeting is a special meeting, so they only can have comments that apply to this subject, which is, again, the School Resource Officer Memorandum of Understanding between German Township and Valley View Local Schools. So.
Good evening.
Address.
I'm sorry.
State your name and address.
Pam Yurka, 4 Prairie Place, Ohio. Pam Yurka.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I am Killian Yurka's stepmom. I'm sure most of you know the situation that Killian was put in last year. I won't go into more detail. I am here to speak about the responsibilities that I feel a good SRO officer should possess. SRO officers should be in a school to protect the students and build positive relationships with them, endorse high moral standards and use good judgment and discretion, create positive impressions that transcend the school environment, have patience and an even temper, bridge gaps between youth and law enforcement. An SRO officer that bullies the kids, dress codes the girls, and threatens an entire team with being put in jail is not someone that we need at Valley View. I don't want another kid to go through the mess that Killian Yurka went through last year. And I would hope that anyone that is involved in making important decisions for our school would feel the same. Thank you.
All right, name and address, please.
Chandra Carriage, 21 Hoover Place. I'm probably going to get emotional too, just to warn you. Okay. Good evening, trustee members. You know my name, Chandra Carriage. I have 5 children, 3 of which have graduated from Valley View already, and 2 of whom are senior and junior respectively. I will speak to the incident with Killian. You all know that.
Go ahead and explain that. I mean, I think I know, but I just of general terms, we don't need to.
Okay, it happened on at a wrestling practice. It was him and another young man. And basically it was a bully who got a little taste of his own medicine and didn't like it. In the process of warming up, the Joe Jackson was kind of egging Killian on, which he did with most of the other wrestlers. You know, I can beat your ass. I can do this, jujitsu moves, which are not allowed, and Coach Miller does not allow, because they're submission moves and they're made to submit somebody or you're going to break their arm or make them pass out. So what Killian did, it's an actual wrestling move. It's called checking somebody's oil, which gave him a little boop in the bum. And that's how all of this started. Right, okay. So I had my own encounter with Mr. Marsden beginning of the school year last year with my son, Luca. Some little freshman girl after a assembly, which addressed online bullying, sexual harassment, blah, 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 got a little worked up and said that she got an inappropriate Snapchat from somebody with the first name of Luca. That's all they had was a name. It's a very uncommon name. There's 2 Lucas in Valley View School District. So what happened is they pulled Luca into the office where Officer Marsden stood between Luca and the door, arms folded, and told him, "You can tell the truth or I can arrest you for sexual harassment." All of this was done unbeknownst to me. I was not told he would be questioned by the SRO. I didn't know any of this until after the fact. And he made Luca go get his phone and prove it to him, which of course Luca did, and they found out it was some kid in Fairfield. Didn't even look like Luca. Anyway, I digress. I don't believe that Officer Marsden is the man for this job. I feel like we can do much better. He is adversarial at best with students. He doesn't even like teenagers. And I mean, if we're all going to be honest, he doesn't even like teenagers. He doesn't like dealing with them on a daily basis. He bullies, he intimidates. And I think that's what he was hired to prevent, is bullying and intimidation. After and during all of the Killian stuff, he would stand in the lunchroom, arms folded, and just glare at these boys. And I know this because my daughter works in the lunchroom. And those 2 had had conversations about it. He wasn't happy. And he did do wrong. And not one person has addressed this, how wrong he was, how inappropriately handled that entire situation was. He has no concept of due process, or if he has a concept, he will ignore it. And I believe the district attorney at the juvenile court and the judge, who is now retired, would tell you the same thing. They spent a good amount of time admonishing him for his handling of that situation. He almost took down one of the best kids that I know with one of the brightest futures. If anybody had asked, could this have happened to anybody? Nobody would even think of Killian, ever. He handled it inappropriately. I went to Joe Schuller on many occasions about this, had many conversations with him. I had a conversation with Tim Rudd about him, who feels the same way. He's not the person for this job. And I feel like if this goes forward, you're gonna have problems. He's not gonna, if you give him this opportunity again, it's not gonna go any better, because this is a man who refuses to change. He's a narcissist at best and does not belong around children. He has been told by myself, by Mr. McKee, and by Scholler, he doesn't even get to look at my kids. He will not converse with them unless I'm present. And I am not the only parent who feels this way. So I urge you, go, I mean, there's gotta be somebody, that's somebody else. There's gotta be somebody better suited for this position, because it is not Officer Marsden. Thank you.
Yep.
Name and address.
I'm Jamie Cordell, 309 West Walnut. I also have the same concerns as the 2 prior to us. Couple of things. I have personally worked in both the primary and intermediate building, and I also have been present as a sub in the junior high building. I have experienced the SOR officers that are delegated from Germantown City police officers in the primary buildings versus Marston, who I have seen at the junior high. There are major differences between the 2, and even speaking to both of them while substituting at both buildings. One understanding that the Germantown City police officers that are down there as the SROs One of their big thing is administrative discipline should be with the administrators. They have been doing it for years. They've handled the little stuff that happens in school. And honestly, you don't want the police officer to be involved in those situations because you don't want to take it to a criminal level, you know, and with that understanding, you know, not unless if it's the worst case scenario and it needs to be taken there. Otherwise, their presence, they understand that their presence is there to make these kids feel safe, to make them think that, I mean, they have to run shooting drills now as kids and as young adults. Their presence should be there for that worst case scenario. One thing that I know and have witnessed is Marston being too involved with the administrative discipline side of things with students. It's taken it to another level where he is involved in these conversations that could actually get these children criminal charges. And I'm sure I know most, well, at least I know a few of you that you guys have children. You know they make mistakes. They are children, they're adolescents, they're still learning. We don't want them to have a criminal charge at the end of the day because the SRO is getting too involved into the administrative side of things at school. And those boundaries have gotten blurred with Marston. And that's where my huge concerns are with him. Also, along with that, you should also understand that the school last year did ask Marston not to be present at the wrestling meet because his presence was going to be a negative effect to the student athletes that were involved in that meet as well. And the principal, McKee, and the athletic director both agreed and made sure that that happened, that he was not present for that day. Also, another situation that should also be aware of is after the school board meeting, I believe it was in January or February, Marston made comments to another fellow officer that was there, and there was an altercation as well that night. So that also needs to be aware of or made aware of, and you should probably investigate what that entails. And Superintendent Schuler was present for that, so he could also fill you in on details.
It was an altercation between the two officers.
Between the two officers. Because the one officer does not believe that Marston should be an SRO anymore. And that the investigation that was done on his part and the actions that he took were not the proper protocol. So I just want to let you know of that scenario. And I really strongly and highly feel like you should find somebody else as an SRO as well. And I hope you guys take those into consideration and actually investigate some of those events that have happened. So, thank you.
Anyone else? So again, basically, we're here to approve the agreement between the school board and German Township. We're not here to pick who's going to be the SRO. I understand your concerns. Chief, do you want to address any of that? Or?
No, but I did write down everyone's concerns.
So yeah, I think we're aware, and the chief will hopefully address. And some of this, from my understanding.
I have one more thing.
Sure. Somebody.
You gotta make it.
Oh, wait.
Sorry. Sorry. The morning that Killian was taken to juvenile detention, Marsden went in and threatened the entire wrestling team at the high school. Threatened them with jail if they spoke negatively to Joe Jackson, if they wrestled him too hard, anything. That is just completely uncalled for. You don't go, I mean, you can go have a conversation with the kids, but you don't threaten them with jail time. Thank you.
Appreciate it. So I think all your concerns have been heard. we're kind of at a point we need to, since school starts next week, we need to have that SRO in place, but say we'll consider your comments. Anything else? Yeah, sure. You can, ideally, if you go to the podium, that way it shows up on the.
That's the only way that it can be
That
recorded.
recorded, okay. Question, first of all, as a memorandum, your thought, is there anything that we can read? Is that available for us
Sure, yeah,
to read?
make a copy. You know, we need on that right now, or?
Yeah, I'd like it, yeah, thank you. And also, Sergeant Gansett? Chief, sorry.
Is it?
Yeah, you and I have spoken on the phone concerning Officer Marston. Question to you, is there anybody else that could be vetted for this position in lieu of Officer Marston?
There is a possibility.
Again, we're kind of getting off topic though. That's what it's, but I understand.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering if it's lack of options, or, I mean, if is this the person that is actually gonna fill, he's gonna fill the position then, starting
I would
when
think,
school
because
starts?
again, there's only a week, before school starts.
Well, a lot can happen in a week. I feel like we could move mountains if properly motivated. I don't feel like that's out of the question to find somebody else. Or at least I feel like his actions deserve a suspension of duties until it's fully investigated before he's allowed policing our children in their learning environment. I don't think that's too much to ask for.
Okay.
So, yeah, thank you. I'm gonna look this up.
You would want.
Any more comments? With the trustees having. That's something
It's only concerning the memorandum.
this is only concerning the memorandum. Basically, it's just the contract between the school, this in place because school starts next week, so make sure. Well, having said that, I'd like to introduce resolution 2023-39
39.
to approve the school resource officer memorandum of understanding between German Township and the Valley View Local School District Board of Education for the 2023-2024 school year.
Second.
Is there any discussion of resolution 2023-39?
I just had a couple of questions for Chief. It's on the fourth page. Number for the basic responsibilities of the SRO will include, but not be limited to. Number 7 is to attend school special events as needed. So who determines that? Is that school comes to you and says, we need the SRO at this event, or?
I would assume that they would ask him to be at the event. He would contact me and say,
Yeah, because I wasn't sure.
because he would essentially have to ask to be paid overtime.
What's happening? This was, we had talked about this earlier, but they're, who's going to pay that overtime? Obviously us, or is it the school going to pitch in?
Or just the SRO's time could be flexed to where it didn't cost any overtime.
So there's no mention in the MOU about jurisdiction. So we can have jurisdiction even if it goes to Germantown. There's nothing in there.
He could, the SRO could get any school within the school district. The SRO wouldn't necessarily have the ability to force the law in other jurisdictions. But there could be an SRO in that building.
What about the football game? Officer Marsden was there. he has no jurisdiction.
Has no jurisdiction to enforce the law, correct?
So, so that's something that, again, these are all things that next year we need to, address, I think, um, sure. You want to come out?
So how does that apply? How does that apply if one of our schools is, because I know like junior high's in Farmersville, so that's Jackson Township. So how does that?
And we had this several years ago. I don't know if you remember Dave Miller. He was an SRO for the school.
No.
He was a lieutenant for Jackson Township, but most of his time was spent at high school.
Okay.
And if there was anything that the SRO, then he worked on it. But if there was a criminal crime occurred, he would have to call German Township for us to go up because the school is in German Township. He only had jurisdiction in Jackson Township, which is right across the road, but that's the divider.
Yeah.
So it's the same. In the next case, so if an SRO from Germantown that worked for German Township went to Farmersville
Yeah.
to the junior high, and there was a crime, then Jackson Township would be contacted to go to the school and handle the crime.
The situation. Okay. All right.
There's just some ambiguity that I think that, again, next year we need to address that. So this is interesting too. The keys date given by Conger to basically give the keys to the school system to say that the building is completed was listed as 10/26/2024. So next year, I don't know how the school's going to handle this. They'll have 2 months at least before they'll still be using the old buildings. And then depending on, getting the keys is different than having the whole school outfitted and ready to go. So I think next year we ought to start these negotiations really, really early, at least by June, because you may have two separate memorandums. You may have from the start of school until the school moves into the new building and then the new building is open. Because again, I think the idea next year, if with the new building is to possibly have 2 SROs. Correct? Yeah.
That is my understanding. For this, since all grades will be located in one building, I would say they will probably look to get 2 or 3
to cover that.
to cover the entire building.
So again, just a heads up, I think, we're under the gun as far as this year. We pretty much, just because of the logistics, I think hopefully the school board will give you.
Well, and I did go to them very early this year, and they just kind of.
Yeah, the school board didn't address it until last meeting, which is just
right. But I've gone to Mr. Scholler and said, hey, we need to get this rolling, and that was probably in June, I want to say.
So that's all the questions I had for discussion. I think, again, most of it's just, things to think about next year, especially just to clarify things for the community. So that's all I got, Mark.
Any other discussion of the resolution? Then I will call the roll. Dr. Cross,
Yes.
Mr. Potter,
Yes.
Resolution 2023-39 is adopted.
Okay, with no other business tonight, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we are adjourned. I have 7:24. I think that the clock is wrong. We'll adjourn at 7:24. Good night, everyone.
Thanks for showing up. I appreciate you guys giving.
Thank you.